Welcome back to Unleashing You. Today, I speak with Patter Gersuk, who is the founder and CEO of Patter Bar, a whole food energy bar company based in Colorado. After training at Le Cordon Bleu, her many paths led to teaching cooking classes at Williams-Sonoma, and then for her neighbors and friends in her historic Boston home. Patter's passion to teach people about food was solidified as a staff educator at Whole Foods. Food has been such a gift in her life, and she is on a mission to share that with others. Patter and her company source the best ingredients, treating them with the respect they deserve, and sharing with the people that she loves. What's better? It's always been her dream to make great food accessible to everyone, and Patter Bar is only the beginning. If you have a dream of starting or growing a business, this episode is for you. Patter shares how she began her journey of starting her company in her 60s, not knowing anything about business, and the steps that she took along the way to grow the incredible company she has today. Patter is a ray of light, and I can't wait for you to hear our conversation. Before we begin, I want to make sure that you have the Unleashing You retreat on your radar, because just the fact that you're tuning into this podcast means the Unleashing You retreat is right up your alley. The reason I created the Unleashing You retreat is because as women, we tend to look to everyone else for the answers. We somehow think that everyone else knows better than we do, when in reality, tapping into your own intuition is actually the key to living a happy and fulfilled life. And that's how I've created the career and life I have now, and what we'll teach you how to do during this retreat. An inner shift like this will leave you with tools that you'll use for the rest of your life. This retreat is so much more than a girls' trip. This is a transformation. If I've piqued your interest, I want to personally invite you to join us in Steamboat Springs, Colorado on September 19th through the 22nd. During our time together, we will go through coaching workshops and other deep personal development activities that will uncover aspects of yourself you never even knew. Work like this would take months or years to do on your own, and we're going to get you there in just a few short days. Not to mention, we'll be staying in a gorgeous mountain home, complete with a private chef, so you don't have to lift a finger. If you are ready for a pampering getaway where you can recharge your batteries and feed your soul, send me a message on Instagram or visit acrprofessionalcoaching.com to learn more and reserve your spot. Spots are very limited, so do not wait. And I'll see you in the mountains. Now, let's get on to today's show. Welcome to Unleashing You. This podcast is your permission slip to create success your way. I'm your host, Amanda Riffey, a certified success coach and female business leader who has climbed her way up the corporate ladder. I've been through burnout and back and found the tools to bring fun and enjoyment to my career while creating powerful results and leading in a way that feels authentic to me. This show brings you conversations with women just like you who have created massive success for themselves and are doing it in their own way. We'll hear about their personal journeys of growing their career while still prioritizing the things they love most. If you are ready to be challenged and encouraged to reach your next level, then buckle up, sister, because the road to dreamy success begins here. Let's dive in. Hey, Patter, welcome to Unleashing You. How are you?
Thank you, Amanda. I'm so pleased to be here. Thank you for thinking of me.
Yes, I am excited that we are making this happen. You and I met when we were both on Loving Living Local in Colorado Springs and just hit it off. And then I think this podcast episode has been in the works for a little bit. And finally, the stars have aligned and we're able to sit down and just have such a good conversation, because I know each time I talk to you, you're just so full of insights and knowledge. And I know you're here to share so much with our listeners as well.
Well, thank you. It's really a delight to be here. And I'm not sure what I can, but I love talking with you, particularly, and your other entrepreneurs. So that'll be exciting to talk about.
Absolutely. So let's talk about you. Let's start with that.
My least favorite thing to do, but okay.
I know it's always hard to talk about ourselves, but tell us about your story, your career journey. Talk to us about your story in general.
Well, golly. Well, not sure how far you want to go back, but nonetheless, I went to undergraduate in Boston and then graduate school in New York City and got my master's in public policy, wanting to change the world. And then I got married and we moved quite a bit because of my husband's job. He worked for a newspaper reporter and then he worked for a large corporation. So we moved a lot. I never quite established my uh, work in public policy because when I moved to Florida, they really didn't know what a master's in public administration was. But I have always loved food, which has really been my near and dear. And when we moved to London for my husband's job, he said, "This is it. You're going to the Cordon Bleu. You've always wanted to, cooking school. You've always wanted to do it, and now's the time." So I did, and it was a dream come true. And I thought, boy, maybe I can make something happen with this. And then we moved to San Francisco, and I worked at a little small French restaurant and did some catering. And then we moved to Boston, and I just, again, tried to find something that I really wanted to do. And I ended up teaching cooking classes at Williams-Sonoma. And then I thought, I could do this in my home. I lived in a suburban community with a lot of women who were great, but they didn't have time and they didn't quite know how to manage the children, the whole thing. And I'm all about making cooking easy and accessible, but making real food. That was my whole thing. So I ended up doing that. And it was great. Loved it. And then I went to work as a savory chef at a small gluten-free cafe and bakery because I knew nothing about the whole gluten-free thing. And I did that and it was great. And at the time I was also thinking, with a lot of encouragement, people said, open a restaurant. And I thought, I am not going to learn how to run a restaurant on my own dime. So that was another reason why I thought I'd go to learn with someone else. And I did. And I thought, never open up a restaurant. It is just so much work. It's so challenging. And anyway, I then went to work for Whole Foods as an educator for staff, did onboarding and organic compliance, as well as was a local forager, which I loved. I loved everything about that. And then we moved to Colorado. And my children were all here. They were never going back to Boston. And I thought, okay, now what am I going to do? And I had thought a couple of different things. As I said, I love to cook, love to bake. And so I thought I'm going to test the market with two different kinds of product lines, savory crackers and nuts and fun things. But again, all done with French butter, really high-end ingredients, which I thought would distinguish them. And then also sweet things, so cookies, etc. And then since my children were little, obviously I always made their baby food. I was a kind of purist mom, no shortcuts, just real food, no junk food, no soda. And then when they got older, trying to find, convenient snacks, I made these energy bars and just pure dates, seed or nut butters and dried fruit and nuts, real simple stuff. And then my son-in-law was eating one day in the kitchen in 2016, I think. Yeah. And he was a D1 lacrosse player. And he said, "You should sell these." And I rolled my eyes and was like, who needs another energy bar? My gosh, the aisle with millions of them. And he said, "No, I've been eating energy bars forever and they taste terrible. They're full of junk. They actually don't sustain me. A lot of them upset my stomach." So I started to look and I thought, wow, this is amazing to me. What is in these bars? I can't even pronounce half this stuff. So I thought, okay, I'll test the market with the three products, the savory, the sweet, and the things with no added sugar. I went to Cherry Creek Farmers Market and 2-to-1 people wanted things with no added sugar. So I thought, okay, I'm going to jump in here and started at the South Pearl Farmers Market and then also My son-in-law and his friends were great. They paved it for me to get some sales. And we started in Denver coffee shops. So that's been my journey. And that's how I ended up with Patter Bar, which is 100% whole food energy bar with gluten-free, vegan, no added sweeteners or sugar. And it has been an incredible journey.
Yeah, that is incredible. And one of the things that I love about listening to you talk and even just sharing your story and in the conversations we've had before is that you break things down in a way that seems so simple and manageable. And many of us, and I know starting a business and growing a business is work. We have to be dedicated. We have to be passionate. We know that. But it doesn't have to be so complicated. And I think sometimes we might have a dream and we are scared to take the first step because we think like, there's no way I could know how to do all of that. I have no idea what I'm doing. And when we talk, you didn't know what you were doing either when you started
Believe me, I'm
out.
not sure. I still don't know what I'm doing. Because the stakes are always get higher and you always are approaching something new. So you have to figure it out as you go.
Exactly. And so sometimes we can talk ourselves out of it of thinking like, oh, that's not meant for me because I would know what I'm doing if that was the case. So can you walk us through even maybe some of the milestones or some of the steps that you had to take to get your business to where it is today?
Well, I know food and I have known food for a long time because I've spent a lot of time and that was been in my world because I love it. But I didn't know business and I didn't know how to run a business. I didn't know what I should be doing. Certainly didn't understand the mechanics of getting licensing and all that sort of thing. But whenever I have something, and I guess my easy example for me is a recipe. So if I look at a recipe and I'll say, okay, it's beef bourguignon, for instance, or something, that seemingly takes a long time. It's a big deal. I always break it down into its elemental steps. Okay, what do you need to do first? What can you do in advance? What do you need to do at the end? And it's the same thing with the business. I thought, okay, I would like to start this business. Well, I have to create a business. What does that mean? Well, the Rocky Mountain Finance Club offered these entrepreneurial classes for free. And I thought, okay, I'm going to go take that and see what some of the foundational things I need to put in place to actually establish a business plan, a bank account. They had tremendous resources too. For instance, directing you to a lawyer that had, once a month free time if you had questions about how to incorporate, or resources at the Denver Public Library with a research librarian that would help you identify data to see whether or not this idea of mine had any support, which I did. I went and spent it on there. I looked up, okay, here's where I am in Denver. People in what area how much money do they spend on snacks? Is it sweet or savory? And what are their zip codes? And I looked at all that stuff. And I know this sounds like I'm getting in the weeds, but I wanted to make sure this was a viable idea. And I thought, this is great. People spend a lot of money they spend money on snacks, and I know they want quality. So that's when I thought, okay, I can make this go. So at the farmer's market, you talk to people, you get feedback. That was a big deal. I didn't understand licensing. When I had tested the market at Cherry Creek Farmers Market, I had done it under the cottage food law. And that is a different kind of a thing. You can make non-perishable food in your own home and you can sell it as long as it's labeled accordingly. Then when I decided that I wanted to do this as a proper business, I knew I had to form a corporation. I had to get the proper licensing, and I couldn't do it in my home anymore. So I had to looked at like 15 places, I swear, of commercial kitchen space. I knew what I wanted, and I knew that I didn't really want to go with those places that, you're sharing the kitchen with people that are making barbecue sauce and slinging pulled pork, and that's just not me. So I knew what I needed. And then I spent the time to look for that, identified a place to go. I then spent so much time trying to identify the proper licensing and going down to the zoning department and making sure that I had the tax and excise and license. Nobody told me to do this. It's like, oh, how do I get my licensing? Again, at this class, they said, these are the departments you need to go to. And, you try and call, no one answers. So I would go down at 7 a.m. First thing when it opened, I found out what to do. And so we incorporated, I got a bank account, and, each step of the way, you kind of build on it. Then I thought, okay, now that I'm getting some traction, I need help. Well, this young girl, she really liked what I was doing. She turned out to be a pastry student at Johnson & Wales Culinary Program. And so I thought I could get her. I'll ask her, and maybe she has kids at school to help me make these things. Nothing about what I was doing was hard. This was not complicated cooking. It's very simple. So I felt very comfortable about that I didn't need to have specialized skill. And that was the other thing. I thought I'm not going to try and get 25 different flavors. I'm going to stick to 3 flavors to start. Very simple, very manageable, not expensive ingredients. I love more exotic things like, for instance, hazelnuts and things like that. But I thought, no, just stick to pretty basic stuff that will appeal to the most people, see where it goes, and then you can go from there. So I was very tight, 3 different flavors, which is not a lot. And then we had to decide about the packaging. That was another thing. I don't know anything about packaging. And we did it all by hand initially when I tested the market. These little bags you found, and I'm on the internet finding these bags and these heat sealers and all this kind of stuff. But then I found we had to find a design company. So one of the guys that was working with me heard of this platform, 99 Designs in San Francisco, and they run contests with designers from all over the world. And there's different prize level monies. There's different levels of prize money. And so, you tell them basically what you want, and then you get submissions. It was so cool. We got submissions from, New Zealand and Japan, and it was really cool. So we ended up with this young guy from Colombia living in Brooklyn. And, we work with him in design. Then you have to find a company to make this stuff. Okay. And again, I don't know, how do you do that? So I just went online. It was really interesting. One of the things I have found is that I would just call, find it online, and I would call and I'd say, I'm brand new at this. We are really small. I could use some help. And you would not believe how great people were in talking to me. And that was something I thought, I'm not going to pretend I know what I'm doing, because I don't. And I needed guidance. And I ended up every step of the way, there were the most amazing people that were willing to help. And so I think that's, if you put yourself out there and your intention is good. And I knew that I certainly couldn't contract for, a million things of film. I had to keep it very tight because of money and shipping and all that kind of stuff. So again, every step of the way. And this guy that was helping with the packaging that worked for this company, I ended up identifying, I got bids, and I just said, okay, what is your lead time? The simple questions. I need this stuff. Well, I need it by X. I need how many, how long it's going to take, how much is it going to cost? Those are the kind of things I could break it down one step of the way. So no matter what your product is, if it's, what do you need to do to get to the end game?
So many great things in what you just said. The first thing that I heard you say was you didn't know all of the steps you had to take, but you knew the next step that you needed to take. And you just
That's exactly right.
Figured that out until you tracked that down and learned that new skill, got that step out of the way. Then you're like, okay, what's the next thing I need to tackle? And so really broke it down into manageable steps. And the other thing that I really love in what you said was around asking for help. And we can't do this alone, all by yourself. Even if you are a solopreneur starting out, you need to find your community, find your resources, find people who are further ahead than you are in whatever it is that you're wanting to do. Because people, like you said, are more willing to help than we might think.
Oh, it's amazing, Amanda.
Yeah.
And I mean that I think is such an essential thing. So when I knew that, okay, I needed packaging, well, I didn't know what to do. But I called and I said, okay, what do I need to do? And they would tell me. And then the next time around, it was, okay, you need to go to the next step. But I didn't know that until I got to that stage. But people are so willing to help you. And you know what? I always would say, so if you don't know what the next step for me is to do you know anybody that I could call that might?
Yeah.
And people would say, call so-and-so or so-and-so. We don't do that kind of packaging. We do packaging for jars or whatever, labeling, it's a different thing, but you might want to try that. I always ask that. And again, you just start out and what do I need? What is directly in front of me? And then you go from there. And it's amazing how people were so helpful.
I hope you're enjoying today's episode. I wanted to quickly interrupt to invite you to schedule your own private coaching session with me. A standalone one-on-one session is the perfect avenue for those times when you need a kickstart towards your next goal. We can unpack so much in 50 minutes. You will leave your session feeling inspired, motivated, and with clear next steps that feel so aligned with you. These private coaching sessions are the quick hits that will uncover your mindset blocks and get you back on the fast track to whatever you're working toward in your career or life. Your session is your time, so we can work through anything that will impact you the most. Let me help you finally see your blind spots so that you can get out of your own way and head toward the next amazing version of you. Send me a message on Instagram or visit acrprofessionalcoaching.com to book your session today. Now, back to the episode.
So again, the next step after we did this by hand, I got students, we rolled them all out by hand, we cut them by hand. It was just such a crazy journey. But one of the steps that I think is also important is to be clear about what you want and why you think your idea is different. What makes it special? And I think one of the most important things is you cannot give up on that. You have to have that in sight. And a simple example is that I knew that I wanted to make energy bars with nothing, no stabilizers, no emulsifiers, no preservatives, nothing in there but whole food, which is extremely unique in the energy bar category. I know that sounds like a double whatever, but it is unique. And so when I graduated from STOP, I did it for 2.5 years by hand. And then I went to a co-packer company that you give the recipe to, they make them. I worked with them from the very beginning. I didn't just hand it off, but in any event, they said, you're graduating to these machines that are much bigger. And I still don't do any processing, but bigger machines. You need to add a stabilizer like soy lecithin because you use the dates are sticky and it's making the machine not work and blah, blah, blah. And I said, no, I'm not doing that. That is not what I'm about. If I do that, I'm doing what everybody else does. Well, you can't believe how I butted heads with this guy and the whole thing. Well, and I only wanted to use a certain kind of date, the medjool date variety, which is the most caramely. It's called the king of dates. It's just the flavor profile is so good. And, that's the other thing. I don't want to just make something healthy. It's got to taste good. People have to want to eat it, not because we have all kinds of customers, not just people that are healthy people. We have, people that just are like, wow, this is really good. So I, again, called Coachella Valley in California is where all the date farms are. They're huge companies. They're massive orchards. And so I just called them all and said, I need dates. I want medjool. Do you have medjool date dates? No, we don't do that. We only do this kind, the cheaper kind, much more accessible. Finally identified a couple that did. One was great, used them for a long time. But then for one reason, whatever reason, their moisture level was in a way changed and it wouldn't work. It was too sticky and too, for two of the flavors. So I'm calling again, trying to find what's going on. I don't know how, and I don't know how this happened. I still don't. But this huge date farm, and they do dates for like major energy bar companies, all kinds of people. He was the nicest guy, and I said, I just want to use medjools. He said, well, people don't use those in manufacturing because it's too finicky, blah, blah, blah. He said, I know, but I know there's got to be a way. And he said, okay, why don't we set you up with our in-house food scientist? You guys talk. And it was amazing. This food scientist helped me dial in the exact moisture level, dry the dates to the percentage of moisture, not so that they would be stable enough that I wouldn't have to use any other stabilizer. I mean, isn't that incredible?
It is. And I love that you always find a way.
That's what I'm saying.
Yeah.
I just kept plugging away.
I just kept going. And if you keep going, you will find a way.
But hold on to what's important.
Yes.
What is yours. Whatever service you have and why it's different, whether it's your customer service aspect of it, whether it's, I don't know what it is. Just keep that in your sights because that's what makes it different. And you just keep working towards finding it. And I mean, who would ever believe that story?
Right.
It's crazy.
Yeah. And I know you have even more of those that we don't have time to get into today, but it's just staying true to what you know and having that mission and having that vision and sticking to it because it's yours. And then don't take no for an answer. Continue to find a way.
Right. And know that it's out there.
Yes.
And the other thing I think is important too, it's so easy when you start, you get so excited. And sometimes you can be tempted to take on more than you can really handle. So it's also important, I think, to be aware about what you want and know that you need to maintain that quality. So King Soopers came to us and they have a startup program. I mean, this was several years ago, way before the pandemic. And so we'd love you to be part of this new contingent for small local brands. And I thought, well, that's really exciting. But then I started to get into it and I thought, this is not for us right now because they require all kinds of charges for promotions and advertising things. And I thought, we're committing to something that we can't afford. And I don't want to get in there and do a false start and then get in over my head. It's very attractive to think you've got all these new outlets, but you have to be really understand your capacity. And again, that you want to maintain the quality.
Absolutely. Another thing that you and I have talked about before is I know we are both passionate about women in business for sure. We have that in common. And you've talked about before about how you really believe that women make fantastic business owners and entrepreneurs because of just some of the innate traits and some of the things that we have within us. Can you talk to us a little bit about that?
I really do. And by no means am I saying that men aren't great entrepreneurs, because clearly that's not true. But I think that there are some particular things that, women tend to be incredibly resourceful and they cope. They just know they handle a bunch of different things. And gosh, if you're a mother, golly, you know how to do many different things at a time. And because children are unpredictable, you are never going to be able to fully control things. And so you have to be able to respond to that. That is an amazing quality in an entrepreneur or a woman in business. Because if you keep thinking, okay, how can I make this work? And what are some of the challenges? And I think women also don't have as much hubris. They have more humility and they're willing to be open and also to cooperate with other people and say, okay, how can we do this? It's not just because I want to do it because I want all the credit. And they're much more collegial, I think, in their working habits. And again, gross generalization, but I think I mentioned you. I have the right to say that because I'm so old. I can say this by virtue of my experience. So I think women like more comfortable working together. And as a result of that, they're open to new ideas. I think that they are resourceful. I think that they're used to coping and getting things done. So I think that's the other thing. And also, so many women underestimate those very basic skills that are so essential for a business: organization, coping, finding a way, being resourceful. That is such a definition of a good business person.
It really is. So let's say I'm someone listening to this and maybe I've got dreams of starting something on the side or finally taking action on, that big dream that I've had on my heart. But I'm afraid that number one, growing that business, I won't be successful at it. Or maybe even the flip side, I'm just as afraid of being successful at it because I feel like now I have to sacrifice my life and my time and everything that matters to me. And I know you and I both know that it does not have to be that way. So what advice would you give to somebody listening who's maybe got some of those limiting beliefs in their mind?
Well, I think that you have to be pretty clear about what your capacities are. I'm at a stage in my life where my children no longer live at home. So that obviously frees up a lot of my time. But if you are a working woman with children or small children, you do not have a lot of free time. And most of the time it's done, but you end up sleeping because you're so tired. So I think the idea there, if I were at that stage of my life and I had an idea about what I wanted to do, what I would do is spend some time really investigating what is my competition, what makes it different. And then there is no sense of urgency, but what would I really need to do to see my idea come to reality. And then you work towards it. In the meantime, also, who's doing it now? Who can I talk to? Who can I call? People, and to this day, I've had so many bar companies. I mean, truly, Amanda, probably at least 8 companies have called me and said, I know that this sounds crazy, but could you tell me about a bar company? I'm thinking about starting my own bar company. And, my idea has always been there's room for everybody because everybody's got different things. So I will spend time talking to them. So if you wanted to open up a counseling service or a whatever it might be, go talk to somebody who's doing that and say, how did you do it? What were your steps that you took? Spend the time now, if whatever little time, to do research and to find people that you can talk to that can help you hone in on what it is you want to do and make your goal clear.
That is excellent advice. And that is something that any one of us could do today to get us one step closer to that dream. Like, we have so many different seasons of life, and this might be your season to go all in, start this big dream. It might be your season to plan. It might be your season to pause and rest. Like, there's always something that you can be doing. And what I heard you say was, get clear on what that vision is, and then just take steps towards it. They don't have to be quantum leaps all the time.
That's exactly right. And it's when you say, okay, I'm going to do this. Okay. And that's it. But it doesn't have to be that way. The other thing is, think outside the box. So if you have this idea, and let's say you've got a friend that has something similar, or they would like to be with you, a relative or something, why not do it together at a different stage in their life? There are people at the farmer's market that sell things, and one woman comes, 1 week a man comes, and 1 week another woman. So you don't always have to think so unilaterally. If you can think about getting other people involved to test your idea, and then it doesn't require such a time commitment. And then, so I think it's important to try and think, how could I figure out more about establishing this business? Who can I talk to? Get a community. For food, there's a lot of nonprofit food groups to support food entrepreneurs in Boulder and in Denver. So what are those similar organizations? The U.S. Women's Chamber of Commerce is a perfect example. They do all kinds of things, all kinds of businesses, different groups within it. So just go test it out and say, who's there that I could talk to?
It doesn't have to be an all or nothing. Oh, I love it so much. I think that you just gave the golden nugget with that one.
Well, it's so hard because you get so excited about this idea and how you'd like to do something else, but it is not an all or nothing. And I think that that's really important. And you just have to be very clear about what your time constraints are, because you don't want to be in this place and then regret the fact you were not doing anything right.
Yeah, exactly. You don't want to look back on, 5 years from now and be like, oh, if I would have started 5 years ago, I could be, imagine where I could be. But those small steps add up. And so just moving closer and closer to your dream. And the other piece that I would say too, around, not having to sacrifice what's important to you, is also building your business in a way that works for your life. And you don't build it so that it's scalable. Build it so that it works for you. And you gave the perfect example of just really staying true to what you wanted to build. And as I'm growing my business, I am very careful of, okay, if I got 5 more clients, what would that look like? Is my business set up to continue to give me the life that I am craving? And the whole reason that I went into business is, and most people, a lot of times it's freedom, it's, scalability, it's all of these things. And so making sure that you're setting it up, even if it's small, set it up so that it can scale in a way that's going to work for you.
In your life. It's exactly right. I think that's really important. It doesn't have to be all or nothing. And the other thing is, you have to be realistic about it. You're not going to make $1 million tomorrow. So that's okay though, because it doesn't have to be that way. You're going to build something that's sustainable, that can work for you in your life at this time. And then you're going to build on it, and you'll begin to meet people and get a reputation And all of those things are essential. And then word of mouth, of course, is if you can build that base, then guess what? You don't have to have as big a marketing budget. I mean, I'm being overly simplistic, but you know what I'm saying. So all of those things, I think it's funny because, you think I can do all these things now and here I am and I've got this idea, but it doesn't have to be that.
Yeah. Give yourself as long as a runway as you need
Here I am,
to.
as I said, I'm old. I started this when I'm 67, which, I don't care about. I have no more pride anyway. So 67. And so we've been in business. This is my 6th year.
Yeah.
So think about that.
Amazing.
And this is a very demanding physically because, you're running around with all this stuff, but you can do it if you want to in the way you want to do it.
You started a brand new business in your 60s.
Yeah.
And that's incredible. That's amazing. Yeah. I love it so much. Okay, Patter, where can our listeners find you if they want to continue this conversation and they want to learn more about you and, of course, Patter Bar?
Well, my email is patterbar.com, and I'm always happy to talk to anybody about whatever I can do. And we're at Patterbar for Instagram. Please follow. That's always a good thing, too. And on Facebook, it's Patterbar Denver. So in stores, they can buy bars. We have a website, patterbar.com, and that's really simple. We're at the farmers markets, Parker on Sundays, South Pearl, City Park, and Highland Square every weekend through October, beginning of November. And then natural grocers and Marziks and Levers and Choice Markets and a lot of coffee shops. We're in coffee shops all over the state. So
incredible. I love it so much. It's so exciting. Patter, thank you so much for just this beautiful conversation, for what your business does for people and staying true to your mission and vision and being willing to share that with us as well.
Well, thank you for the opportunity. It's so much fun to think that maybe some little bit would resonate with somebody and it was helpful.
Oh, I think more than a little bit, probably.
Well, I hope so. Anyway, thank you for the opportunity, Amanda. I really appreciate it and love speaking with you.
Absolutely. Thank you. Thank you so much for tuning in to today's episode. If you'd like to continue this conversation, connect with me on Instagram and say hello. You can find me at AmandaRiffy_coaching. In the meantime, if you know you are ready to step into the next incredible version of you and want to completely accelerate your personal and professional growth, let's work together. I offer one-on-one private coaching as well as workshops and in-person events. There's really something for everyone. To learn more, visit my website at acrprofessionalcoaching.com or send me a DM on Instagram and start a conversation. And don't worry, I truly want all of us to succeed. So I promise I will never steer you wrong. Let's create a career and life you love. Chat with you again soon.